Hello everybody, welcome back to Spruverse, my scale model universe, people of Earth. Welcome to a brand new build. On the bench today, Randy Cooper's Phoenix. This all resin molded kit came out of his incredible mind quite a few years ago. And I had to have one when I saw him talking about it on his own channel. If you don't know who Randy Cooper is, we'll do a little more of an in-depth kind of bio of him and his life as we go through this build. And these kits were incredibly popular. And now, of course, with the advent of 3D printing, you could actually take something like this and you could print it quite easily. So but what I'm most intrigued about is the fact that this is a technology that we won't see much of anymore. There's a few guys out there making stuff like this, but not on this scale and not of this detail and not this unique. So I just thought it was high time that we celebrated Randy and his incredible talent. He's become a wonderful friend, and I really enjoy working with him on various different projects. So I thought it would be really fun just to sort of pay that back a little bit and make this a tribute build to Randy. So Randy, if you're watching, this is for you, and I hope I do it justice. I really do. Well, look, it's all on the bench, and you can see from these various different angles what we're actually dealing with. Let me go back to my big studio view. I thought it would be fun to start showing you a little more of the world that we work in and make it a little less claustrophobic. So here that is. But everything is on the bench. Now, we've talked about resin molded kits before. The parts are created either out of clay or out of parts of plastic, detailed up, and then they're made into molds, and then the resin part is poured from that mold. If you've never built anything like this before, it should be interesting for you. If you do have kits like this at home, you'll know there's a couple of basic rules we have to live by. The first one is resin dust does not work with human lungs. So when you are sanding and cleaning these parts up, please use a respirator. I'm in a very well ventilated space, but this dust is not anything to mess with. You do want to make sure you're not breathing it. That's rule number one. Rule number two is some of these parts are never going to be perfect. So if you have one of these kits in your stash, you will definitely know that some of these parts are not perfect. Part of the skill you'll have to learn as a model maker is where you've got deficient parts, we have to either rebuild them, create something for the to replace it, and we'll talk a little bit about that. It's just the nature of the beast. It's part of the fun of having to put one of these together. And if we're going to try and put light in it, we're going to have to drill some holes and be creative. Now, Randy has been incredibly supportive. He sent me a myriad of photos because you don't get instructions with these models. You're on your own. But most of it is pretty it's self-explanatory. It's a shame that this kit is no longer available. So I will be saying that 1,000 times through the build. Please don't be upset with me. This kit is no longer available. But if you are showing interest in it or something like it, reach out to Randy. I'll give you his contact information in the description below, and I'll continue to do that through the build because we're going to be on this for quite a few weeks. And reach out to him, send him an email, just say, hey, I saw Phil over at Spruverse building your Phoenix. Are you planning anything in the future? I know he is. I know he's moved heavily into 3D printing. So expect some great things from Randy in the future. Okay, enough of my rambling. Let's dive in. The first thing I have to do is clean up these parts. There's an awful lot of flash on them. That's very normal for these kinds of of kits. And what that will also do is give me a chance to start understanding what the what the symmetry is of it, how it goes together. Some of it is self-explanatory, and some of it I'm going to need photos to figure out where things go. I do know I've got wings. I've got a central fuselage. That much we know. We know we've got a cockpit here, and we know that's going to live something like this inch. And so we are then simply having to figure out the business end of this, which is here. Here's the business end. And there's going to be some cutting and trimming, I know, that we have to do here, and that creates the well, it sits in here, doesn't it? That creates the engine part of it, and then we're going to build up the engine that goes to the back. But so you can see already we've figured out quite a bit just by a process of elimination. When I talk about flash, let me show you that. You'll notice here this has got this very clear part, and it's obviously supposed to be hollow because it's very thin. And so what you do is where you can, you sort of you break in and you start to clean it up, and you'll see that we can actually, and it's quite brittle. And boy, is it going to make a mess. But you'll see that's the technique. And we're going to slowly go around, and we're just going to pick apart at all the elements that have flash on them. So that's step one for me. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then we will really look at a rough assembly to see not only where everything goes, but what are sub-assemblies we're going to need, and what is how we're going to get lights into this. Now, I'm not necessarily going to end up with something as beautiful as this. I just am not. These pictures are from Randy Cooper. This is his build-up. And we're going to be following along, and then we're going to try and get as faithful to it as possible, maybe with some changes of our own, maybe with a paint scheme of our own. I don't know. We'll see. But let me dive in with step one, and we'll come back when everything is cleaned up. I'm glad you're with me on this incredible adventure. Randy Cooper's Phoenix on the bench. Let's dive in. There's a 98.9% chance you don't have this kit. Because first of all, it's quite a few years old. Second of all, the molds don't exist anymore. It's no longer for sale. And third of all, resin kits like this are getting harder and harder to find. But if you happen to have a solid resin kit, a printed kit, not printed, poured resin, as opposed to printed, hopefully some of these tips or just sort of following along will help guide you. What I've learned from building 5 or 6 of these, not a lot, but quite a few large scale pieces. And one of the biggest, the most important things you'll do when you have a kit like this is you're going to make sure that you've done your pre-assembly, so you understand where everything goes and what your fit issues are, because that's 99% of this. Once you know you can actually get this to fit, then you're off to the races. So I had a couple of things to deal with on the business end of this, namely these engines. Now they only go in one way. Because the backs of them are not, there's no detail on them for obvious reasons, because you don't see them. They die into these wings at the back here, so and they take up the lower half of your of the rear of your engine here. So you end up with potentially some joint issues and some joint issues, I should say, and also a little bit of puttying to do. But that's always to be expected with kits like this. Fit is paramount you sort of go through and make sure that you've got your fit and you understand where everything goes. Once you understand where everything goes, that doesn't want to behave. Once you understand where everything goes, then you're in good shape. The last thing I have to figure out here is the sort of the process of how these come together. But I think that's sort of it right there, which means that I've got to get light through to this piece here, and I'm going to do that by simply figuring out how I'm going to drill into the back here. I'm going to leave that hole like that, and so that becomes the rear of my engine, and then you have got a relatively completed kit here. Now, a couple of things to look at now. One is obviously just doing your final cleanup. I've done an awful lot of sanding and to get it to this point. I promise you're going to go through a lot of dust and sanding to get to this point. But once you get there, it's pretty smooth sailing. It's just puttying, a little more light sanding, some detail work, but mostly it ends up being painting, and that's super fun. So I've got everything I now need. So before I super dive in, I'm just going to concentrate on this nose here, and I've got to get my cockpit floor in, which is here's the cockpit floor, and that sits in like that, and then everything is built around that. And the nice thing about it is we've got lots of window space here, so there's plenty to see in, and I love this addition of these rear windows here to give you some extra viewing opportunities for detail. So that becomes the front end of the Phoenix. And then the only other thing we're going to be doing is talking about what we need to do to light this. Now, he has provided some holes on both ends. So there. So you can see those were pre-built into this rather hefty thing. So we've got holes on both sides to get lights into the wings. We know we can get lights into the engine and the cockpit. And that's really it. Now, because I'm going to be using Evans Design lights, this whole thing can run off of a 9-volt battery, which means that I don't need a big wall wart to plug into this. I can actually, I've got a clever way of doing it, which is I've got these lovely battery boxes that I have, and I can print, and I can run my 9 volts into the ship, which will be on some kind of an acrylic base. I haven't quite decided. There was a sort of a Phoenix base that this can sit on, which I may just go ahead and use with some acrylic rods, and then just run my cable out to my battery box, and then I'm good to go. So I think we have a relatively decent plan on how this is going to get presented. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and test fit and clean up some of my final pieces now that I know that I have everything and I know where everything goes. And then we'll dive into taking a look at getting the lighting into this that we need to get in, and then we can start doing some sub-assembly. So that's always fun. I'm sitting here trimming a piece of flash off of a stairwell. All right, let me tell you what I've done. I've figured out the geography of our cockpit. So let me show you what we've got here. So the cockpit is sort of interesting. It comes with quite a few accoutrements. So the base that Randy gives you sits down in a groove. Now, I always find that the best thing to always do is sort of try to figure out what the orientation is, and then sometimes you'll realize that in figuring out your orientation, you actually discover the mechanics of things, which is sort of fun. In other words, let me explain to you. So you'll notice there's a lip here around this the edge of this hole, and essentially when you sit your frame over it, it obviously wants to rock a little bit, but it's not the end of the world, because it sits down it does sit down quite nicely. But it's something you have to think about, because it may change something that allows you or doesn't allow you to attach something else together. So you do have to watch for that. I'm going to let me just get this a little more proud. There you go. Okay, so what we have is we have a chunk that sits here in the front like this, and then we've got these two clear parts here, and they are so that you can light up these consoles. Now, I've not cleaned these up yet, but essentially they're going to sit like this. They sit like that. So I'm going to have to figure out how to bring some blue light. So then I'm going to use blue light up, and when they hit the back of this, they'll glow. Once everything else is painted, they'll cause the front to light up, which is fine. Then we've got these back pieces, and what I've realized is this ladder element, which I'll show you here. This ladder element is actually for the back of the seat. Okay, so they sit here like this in front of the control in the controls. Then what you've got is you've got another clear piece which is here, and this clear piece is going to face the front like that. And then once we've done that, we're going to be putting in our seats, and our seats go in here, one there, one here, and then there's one in the front for this front control, like here. It sits something like this in this little kind of indent, and that's the front cockpit. So you've got three pilots here. You've got your pilot you've got your front pilot. It's not going to cooperate. You're going to get the idea here. There. You got your front pilot. You've got your two back pilots, and that is essentially the cockpit. Now, there are some walls. Where these walls go, I know not yet, but I will figure it out. I believe we've got one in the back like this, where the bunks are. There are two bunk beds where you sleep. And then I believe you've got one that sits like this, like that. And I'm not sure where this third one goes, to be honest with you. It may sit on the back side of this in case you can sit through the window. I don't know yet. I'm working on it. But that's essentially your cockpit. Now, it's chock full of stuff, which is really cool. But now there's a bit of a dilemma. Well, it's not a dilemma. It's an issue we're going to have to work with. And that is simply this. This nose piece, which sits outside of the front of the fuselage, like this. It has a piece like this that essentially is the cutout for your screens. So this wants to sit in here like this. So you essentially you put this piece in like this, and then this piece goes in like this, and that is the front of your ship, and that's why there's a window there. And I couldn't figure that out, but that's why there's the window, so you could see through into the front of the nose of this, which curiously is actually not the top of this. It's actually inside like this, and that all sits sort of like basically like that, and that's your cockpit. It's pretty ingenious. It's really fun. Awful lot of detail. So now we've got that, all the geography worked out except for the mystery of the wall, and I'm not quite sure yet where this goes. I'll figure it out. There is a staircase which goes down at the back, and you glue this little staircase in here, and that's going to go in the back over here. So there's that piece. So I've got a couple of mystery pieces that I'm working on. It's this piece here, which I don't know where that goes yet, but I suspect it's an exterior piece, and of course my other wall. But I'm thinking that it does sit on the back side of your piece, because it's the third bunk, so it would make sense that that's where it goes, and that completes your cockpit. Okay, I just figured that out. The genius that is not me. Okay, so I think we pretty much know now where all the parts go. Now, the other thing I want to share with you is I have figured out what I'm going to do with my engine. Now, I am going to use Evans Design breathing red lights. And I've tested this, and it's really cool. So essentially, what I'm going to do, now I'm not able to I've tested it. You're going to have to trust me. I think I might be able to fire it up, but I don't know. Now it's interesting because what I've done is I just put some clear red gel in here like this, and then I've got 3 large SMD breathing lights, and here's them's those is. Here they are. Let me fire them up for you, because I think it's a lot of fun. I'm gonna just start firing these up so that you can see them. Now 3 of them, because they breathe, okay, they're going to fall out of phase, which they do, which in this case is a good thing. We don't want them in phase. We want them to be random, so you get this wonderful pulsing effect. Now, if the YouTube gods are with me, I can put this behind here, like this. And that's just one breather. Yeah, so you get an idea. Okay? So that's what we're going to do there. Now, the genius of 3 is out of phase. It's really punchy. And it's a really nice effect. So that takes care of my engines. And again, I love these Evans Design lights because you can create your own little lighting kit. As long as you know, I mean, they have strobes, they have breathers, they have flashers. They have every color under the sun. They're really it's a great product for something like this. It's also, because the wires are so thin, easier to hide in this resin. So when I have to gouge things out, now, so that's going to take care of that. And so that's my engine sorted, and I'm very happy with that. I've got my cockpit sorted. The next thing I have to do is there are lights in this element here. So I have to drill through here, and I have to get my light into here, and I have to find a lens for that because one didn't come with the kit. But that's okay. That's all part of growing up and building resin kits. So that's all good. I've got everything pretty much cleaned up. I've got some cleanup to do on these exterior engines. I've got my decals here, which I have been working on. Here's them's, those is. And they're sort of fun. So it's you get your Phoenix, you get danger for the engines, you get all kinds of little ticky-tack things. You get the name Phoenix, which is very cool. And you get these awesome little little pieces here, very delicate little pieces. And what he wants you to do with those is he wants you to use them around the windows. We're going to see if we can do that. I'm not as skilled as Randy is, but I'm going to give it the old college try. Okay, and then we've got to deal with our wings. Now we've got to get light in these wings. There is forward and there is rear lights. Now what I don't have is I have red flashes. I don't have a green nav flasher, so I might just use two reds, or I might see if Evans can send me out some green flashes sooner than later. I don't know. Actually, I might have some in nano chip. I'll take a look. But I've got to get light in my wings. I've got to get light in the cockpit. And I've got light for my engine, and there is an opportunity, if you want it, to put some light in the back of these tail fins. And the way you would do that is we would have to gouge our way into here, get the light set, and then Bondo this over, or epoxy it over, and then smooth it down. And I've got an applique here, which will hide a multitude of those sins, and that will go over that like that. So there you go. Now here's an interesting thing about this piece. The piece that was on my tail wing, and I was on a Zoom call with Randy and some friends on Sunday. And it turns out someone else has this kit. But the wing details were just lost because the mold had disintegrated or degraded too much. So this element that was on this wing was useless. So Randy created a new element for this. And that just simply sits on there, and that takes care of that. That's how that was supposed to be. And I suspect originally this was just add some detail to the wing really, but it could also hide these wires. But the point that I want to make is that this piece here is 3D printed, and the detail on it is extraordinary. And what I said to Randy was, if you had the inclination, and he doesn't, but if he did, you could recreate this. This would sit on a 12-inch printer plate. Maybe not the wings. You'd have to go down to about, well, if this was 100%, you'd have to go down to like 85. But you could get it on. The point is, you could get this on a printer, and it would be beautiful. It'd be a great kit. And here is the first piece of basic lighting construction. I'm using cool whites I'll get a little lens on the front of this to give it some diffusion. I've used a metallic black, and then I dry brushed it with some silver to make it pop. But that's ready to go. I'm adding some nano chips to the computer screens. They're going to be red, and they're going to face into the cockpit. And they're going to live behind this, the forward-facing headlights. I've just drilled into this piece here. You can see my hole. You can see the hole I've drilled there, and I went ahead and did the same on the other side. Dropped my light in and hit it with a little CA. I'll do the same on this side. So the easiest way to do this is to just touch your light. It won't hurt it, with a little bit of CA kicker. Put the glue into your hole, and then you're going to just go ahead, make sure your lens is face forward, and you go ahead and you slide that in like that, and it's secure. And let me go ahead and quickly fire these up for you to see the result. And then what I'll do is I'll mask off that screen area and then paint the rest of it black, and then dry brush it. Well, the metallic, I think the metallic black, and then dry brush it with the silver, because it's quite punchy. So do this, and there they are, and you can see they're ridiculously bright, and they'll do a nice job of making those screens come alive. And then what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and paint this up, mask it and paint it up, and I'll show you the result. Basically, what you're seeing in the studio is that it really did a nice job of creating a glow, and everything else is not. So that's going to add some really nice dramatic light to the front of the cockpit, and it's also going to allow me to really really add some ambient light to it too. So I'm very happy with that. I think that's a result. And here is my breathing effect. Now you can see there's a bit of a hot spot on this camera, but I assure you there isn't one inside the studio. Now you can see they're just sort of doing their thing, but in the studio, when you look at this light, you get this wonderful sort of glow, and so I'm very happy with that. That's a result. Let me see if I can tip it to this camera for you, and I think you'll get a even better idea. And again, obviously nothing is painted, but you can see that essentially what that does is create this wonderful effect of the engine burning, and I really like that. I might put some a little more diffusion back there, but I assure you in the studio there's no hot spot, so it's only on the camera, which is fine, but I wanted to just show you the effect. So, making some progress, because as I'm working out my sort of sub-assemblies, I'm also trying to figure out what can be pre-painted and what can go where. I'm focusing in on this engine because there's a couple of little detail parts that need to go on. They're actually going to go on this piece here, this casing. The engine is going to sit in here like this. So this all needs to be pre-painted and detailed out before I can drop this in, for obvious reasons. But down here in the corners, there is this wonderful element here. You'll notice that there's still more of the pore that isn't actually part of the part. So I need to clean that up. You'll see that often in these types of kits. The question is you've got to learn, and it's all by trial and error, unfortunately, how much to remove before you've taken too much. But I think it's a smarter move for me to go ahead and get these sanded down and pre-glue them into place, because that way when you look down into the engine compartment from above, which is how this is going to be displayed, you're not going to look at it from underneath. It disappears under this this part of the engine right here. It's covered by it, and if I can find a way to actually get that to touch, I will. But I think that if I attempt to glue this part to the engine itself, I'm going to run into some clearance issues, and I don't want to do that. For the cockpit, just of note, in some of Randy's pictures, he's got a ribbed screen here in this part. This part here, he's got ribbed screens, and in others they're clear. I think I'm going to make mine clear, and I've got some wonderful elements that go around the windows. He's also added a yellow band around those that does pop with the red. It's a very clever use of color to create a very dramatic effect. It's one of the wonderful things he does, is he does understand scale and proportion and color, and so it's always good to sort of look at his reference pictures and give yourself a hand up, because you're actually getting taught something, even though he doesn't realize he's teaching you. It's a teaching moment, and you should use it, especially if you got his reference pictures. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get these parts sanded down correctly, get them glued on, get a coat of black paint on this, and then we'll address the final wiring needs, because we've got to get some light into these wings. Boy, oh boy, is this is a chunk of resin. It's heavy. We've got to get lights into these wings, and of course into the cockpit. There is a discussion going on in my brain at the moment about whether or not we're going to put a little light in these wingtips. It is possible to do. I do have a drill press, I believe, that can get me through. You could, if you wanted to. You could just gouge a hole in here and then just putty it back, and then you'll have your wire. Because once it gets to this point here, it has to marry up to the back here, like this. It has to marry up like this. And what he would have you believe is that you're going to drill straight down and then in, and that's how you're going to hide that wire. And you would have to drill a small hole here to get that left turn. It can be done. And I am sort of building up enough courage to do it. It's just more grinding and drilling and dust. And that's what's in my head, you know. It's like, oh, yeah, get out the respirator, get the drill out, get the vacuum out. Oh, but hey, I think it'll be worth it in the end. I'm getting there. It feels like an awful lot, and look at this mess on my bench. But I think we're actually getting there, so that's a good thing. Okay, I've got all of my lights in except for these two blue control panels. And what I want to do is I want to sync a couple of these square blue LEDs. Here they are. They're just a blue square. And what I want to do is I've made a mark, and I'm going to drill these out and sit these in here. And that should give me my blue light for my control panel, and then I can paint these up. And this this will take care of all the control panels. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. That's just a function of gouging out one of these and then going for it. By the way, not for nothing, FYI, if you're in the mood for spending a boatload of money, and I do mean a boatload of money, I don't recall how much these are, but this is the new Dremel 8150. Now, I'm not paid, and I was not given this. I purchased this with my own dinero, and it's very heavy. And that's probably because of the battery inside being what it is. But let me tell you, this is a very powerful, versatile Dremel. I've got several Dremels. My most powerful ones you had to plug in. Not anymore. This is a beast. So if you are in the mood for a piece of kit, this is something you definitely should have in your arsenal. Just saying. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get these drilled out. And here's what this looks like. So the blue light LED has been glued in place into the opaque part. I've drilled into the the cockpit sort of control board here, and it goes into the floor. And then simply what I'll do when I'm ready to do it is I'm going to, this will get threaded through there like this, and that sits quite nicely on there like that. And then you can see that we can light up our control board like that. And we'll do both sides, and that will take care of these. So we'll have blue light here, red light in the back, and maybe a little green light coming from up these this sort of little staircase here in the back. And that should be plenty of light in this cockpit. Maybe a little white light in the ceiling. I don't know. I don't want to wash out anything. But that's a really good result. I've just got this one to glue in, and then we can go ahead and paint these up and set them aside. And then the only other thing, I am still debating, and I don't know why this is causing me so much grief, but it is these darn wings. It's like it is begging to have a little orange light in the tip here, begging for it. But it's going to require sort of gouging into this, cleaning it up. So let me do this. Let me see if I've actually got the lights that I want to use. I want to use, I could use reds, I suppose. I could use blues. Let me see what I've got, and we'll make that final determination. And then I've just got to go ahead and quickly put the cockpit back together just to make sure I've got everything that I need in terms of light. And then we can go to town on getting this painted in final assembly. I do have to make a decision about where we're actually coming in for our power. There is at the base here, if you can see it, he's put a little circle. It's a little off-centered. I've got to clean up some of these lines, some of these panel lines. They're not very good, but he has put a light there. Not a light. He's put a little hole there, and I think that's where power will come in, because I don't need very much to come in. And I'm going to use his base, but I'm going to put some acrylic pegs into it. And so this cable will just sort of come out, and a box will live on the side of it. I think that's probably the best way to display it for me personally. Well, I couldn't live well enough alone, and I debated and debated and debated, and I thought to myself, I'm going to regret it if I don't have some kind of red nav light on these tail wings. So I went ahead and did it, and here it is. And I'm going to be glad that I did. Very simple. Created a channel. I used an SMD Nano from Evans, and there's the channel. We'll go ahead and fill that in, putty it in, and I did both sides. So there you go. Something I didn't want to do, I did, and I'm glad I did, because I would have regretted it. Well, the final piece of the puzzle has been solved. I had an opportunity to reach out to Randy, and he immediately told me where it was. Talk about the university of the bloody obvious. I mean, I just missed it, but let me show you. The the underneath of the front of the fuselage has an insert that slides in from the back, and when sanded correctly, as this one is, you can move it all the way forward. That allows this part to actually close up that rear, and it looks like that when it is in. And there you go, and that adds those intake valves to it. Very nice. So what that means is, though, is all of this has to be painted up before it can be installed, which is fine. But that was the last piece of the puzzle in terms of where everything goes. So we have a home for everything now. Now it's just a function of starting to chip away at the painting of it. So step one for me is to get a coat of primer on everything. So that's what we're going to do now. I do have to put a little bit of, I have to protect my SMD chips, which we will do. These are in. These tails, as you know, are in. And we've got this this wonderful piece here that that essentially covers quite a bit of it. It will sit like that. So we've just got a little bit to clean up and paint, but that's fine. I'm doing a little housekeeping. I've gone with NATO black on the floor of the cockpit, and I'm liking it. It feels quite industrial. Now I'm using a lot of rattle cans on this project, only because the fact of the matter is that you know, you've got a lot of surface area to pick up, and you don't really want to be using an awful lot of airbrush paint on some of these surfaces. Now obviously I'm making sure that my final covers are all going to be acrylics. So anything that isn't acrylic, if it's an enamel or lacquer-based paint, it's going to go down first, and we'll really let it dry, seal it, and then we should be good to go. But sometimes with the rattle cans, you don't get great coverage. you get a little bit of coverage, but you don't get great coverage. So I'm just sort of going ahead, and I've got a little jar of NATO, and I'm just picking out all the parts that I couldn't reach with my airbrush, with my rattle can. We are definitely going to be doing a lot of airbrushing on this. I'm still debating on what my exterior color should be. Now Randy went with these rust reds here, and this is his model. And I have to say, I think it's a good choice for this interstellar ship. So you know, can you beat it? I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I've thought about some metals. I've thought about my classic go-to insignia white, but then I thought it would really need to be rusted out or aged up. I mean, it's an interstellar ship, right? So it's going to get an awful lot of wear and tear coming into the atmosphere. So I think this Phoenix has been well worn, well used, as they say. So I'm probably going to go in that direction. But yeah, I'm really liking this color. This NATO black, I think, is a good choice. Now I'm going to do some dry brushing on these console elements for sure. but the basic color for the floor and now I'm probably going to go with a light gray on this ceiling element, but for the floor of this fuselage, absolutely, I'm happy with the NATO black. Now I might dust it with something else, I don't know, but for the moment I'm very happy with this. So I'm going to keep on going here, get this all dried and set up, and then I'm going to start working on just basic assembly of the fuselage, because at a certain point it's going to have to be sealed up, and obviously it can't be sealed up if it isn't complete. So and it needs some other tones too, you know, because you can see into this. There's quite a lot of window space on this ship, so you're going to see a lot. So I want to make sure that I've got some nice contrasting colors, but that everything feels like it, from an industrial point of view, feels like it's working together. So I'm going to keep on going here. For this, I'm just going with what's called NATO green. Now I like these colors because they're dull, and I'm going to go ahead and pick out the bolts on this door with some metals, and I'll age that up just a little bit. You'll see it, but it's definitely something that you know, it'll catch your eye. And the green is green enough against the black, but it's quite complementary, so I like that. So what I've done to date is I've gone ahead, as I'm painting this up, I've got all of the parts ready to go here, and they've all been dry brushed and painted in. So I'm happy with those. They're looking quite nifty. And the object of the exercise here is to sort of figure out where everything lines up. And this is kind of how it lines up. So all of a sudden you start to see this cockpit come alive. And obviously there's a back wall. There's plenty of light in here. We've got the blue lights emanating from these computer screens. And we've also got we've got some red light in here as well. So we've got some blue light and some red lights. And so I think there'll be enough light in this forward section. The rear section is going to be lit by a warm white that will sit on the back wall, and that should pick up what's going on in those back windows. Give you certainly enough of a curiosity factor. So that's coming together quite well. Sorry for jumping around a little bit, but it's time to actually join these two pieces together. And as Randy explains, unfortunately, we're going to have a little bit of a lift, which we're going to have to figure out how to compensate for. When you when you try to line this up, you realize that getting this to sit nicely is going to be a bit of a challenge, because it doesn't sit nicely. However, when you look at this from the side view, what you'll notice here is there is a little bit of an offset. It's not perfect, and if I go to make it sort of level, which I have to do, it pushes it doesn't sit flush. It pushes it back on this side, but I still have a step. So what I might have to do to get this perfect is I might have to create a step like that, because I don't want to take any more material off of this at the moment. I just don't want to do it. So I can get this as close as possible, but I am going to have a step. So we're going to have to work on that. And that's okay, because, you know, it has a very kind of fuselage-esque kind of feel to it. Let me show you the reverse side of that. I'll turn it around for you to camera, and you'll see what I mean. So when I sit this down on itself, and I level this up, you'll notice that there is excuse me, there's no great way to get this lined up. You're going to have a bit of a step. So, but I think this is the best way to do this. So that's what I'm going to do. Great catch. That's what I'm going to do now. Is I'm going to go ahead and get this glued up, and then we'll see what we have to do to compensate for it. But the reason why I really need to do that is because I need to start thinking about exactly where my fuselage is going to live, so that I can pull wires to it, and then everything will start to come together. But I need to know some of these things from a geometry standpoint in order for it to work for me. So that's what we're going to do. There's no going back now. We're going to actually go ahead and glue these two parts together and see what we get. This is where the rubber meets the road, and you can see already that I've run into some issues. And that is because this engine housing needs some material taken off of it right here. You can see that it's just this whole ring is just too thick, and so when I set it down into its chamber where it locks in, and I sort of line that up, and then you go ahead and put the roof on it. It can't seat itself, and it's quite a bit. It's quite a bit in here, and obviously below. So I'm going to start removing material here until I can get myself a decent fit. It all keys in correctly, but it's just not. It's just not going to get there, not even close. So I've got quite a bit of material that I need to remove. So we're going to start removing material very slowly until we get the desired fit. That's part of the sort of the world that we live in. But we had to put this together, as you can see. We had to get this together. We got it relatively flush, so I'm pretty happy with that. But we needed that element in order to start understanding what we've got to do in terms of fit. Now, curiously, there's all kinds of things you see when you're looking at this. One of the things you see immediately is there's this block here, and then there's this keying element here. And when you look at the underside of the engine compartment, you do see this flat surface, and then you see this sort of key here. But it clearly needs to be widened if this is going to sit down lower. So, but getting this to sit down lower isn't going to happen even if I change, I believe, even if I change the outcome of that keying element. In other words, if I start removing material from the wrong world, I'm going to be in a world of hurt. Now, as I look at this, and I sort of look at the profile, I can see that it wants to sort of drop down lower, right, into this sort of little well. And when it drops into that well, you do see how much material has to come off. There's just no way to get this to actually marry up with it at this level. So I've definitely got some material I need to take down here, which I can do. Whether I need to take any material down from the other side, I don't think so. It's just simply where this keys in. Now, if it's keying in the wrong place, in other words, if I take this forward more, it makes the situation even worse. So it does need to come backwards and drop into that keying element. I'm 1000% sure of that. The question now becomes, how much material can I actually remove to get this down to the desired length? But it's not just the desired length. I need to be able to go this way with it, right? I need to go this way significantly. And the only way I can do that is by starting to remove material from this piece. Now, I did glue that in, so the argument could be made that I didn't make that low enough, which is a fair argument. In other words, if I'd have sanded this down much lower, I don't think I would have an issue. So I think I actually hurt myself by pre-gluing that in and not realizing where I was. But it's okay. We can take some material down and we'll test fit this again. Now, this may sound like it came from the University of the Bloody Obvious, but you'll be surprised how how so many of us, including myself, want to force things a little bit sometimes. Sometimes we want to just push it a little extra harder. Rule of thumb is, if it doesn't want to go together, it doesn't either fit correctly or something is wrong. But we've got this down, and it's in the correct position, and it actually lines up quite nicely. Now, you can see that our fuselage is together, and we know we're correct because when we bring it around to the front here, and we look at it from this angle, and we lay down our nose cone piece, it fits perfectly. So we know we're correct. Now, what I had to do is I had to grind down quite a bit of the of this top portion here. So I lost some of the detail, but fear not, we'll get it back with some hoses and some greeblies and things. So I feel pretty confident we can make that look really cool. So I'm not too worried about it. But I do know we've got a relatively decent fit now, and this engine is sitting in here quite nicely. The other thing that we know is that we've got an opportunity. Well, it's not an opportunity. It's where our power is coming in right here. We've drilled this little hole right here, and I've made a little umbilical cord that will come out of it, and that'll go to my battery box, and that's how this will light up. And it's going to be sitting on some acrylic pegs on its Phoenix stand. A couple of things we now know, which is we are ready to go ahead and put in our floor for our cockpit. We've got a piece of vacuum-formed plastic for the interior of this, and so that will be the last thing that goes in, because as sure as I'm sitting here, it'll get scratched, bent, broken, or chipped. So I'm not even going to attempt to figure out if it fits or not at the moment. What I'm not sure about just yet is this gappage. Now, on our gappage here, we did get a heads up from Mr. Cooper that there were some issues here. So when we glue this together, we've got a little bondoing and sanding to do. But he's also given us these wonderful strips that you can actually lay over this like this, and that hides that seam quite beautifully. So I believe, actually, I think this is the correct one here, because I think it follows the contour of this nose edge, which it does. So that will go on like that, and I will obviously be using these because I don't intend to try and putty and sand that. I'm just going to go ahead and use this rib. and that will make a difference. If you don't want to, if you've got this kit and you want to say, no, I'm going to actually putty that in, knock yourself out. But you do have some issues, some fit issues here that we have to play with, and I think one of the only ways to cleverly hide that, in my humble opinion, is to go ahead and use the edge that he provides for us, and put that down, and that'll make that sin go. It'll make that sin go away. So I think that's where we're going to that's where we're going to come out on this. When you are attaching this nose end, because it's what happens essentially is the way this is designed is this nose end slides up to about this point, then the canopy is able to sit over it like this, and you see from this angle there's a window, and there's also a window. Well, there's glass all over this that you can actually see in, and you'll notice that there's elements of this design where you can't get lazy and say, oh well, I'm not going to paint that. You have to. But the way this is designed, it's a little awkward, to be brutally honest with you. But there is enough space underneath. If I move all this off, there is enough space underneath to run these wires back, and they're going into this channel here, and it's a lot deeper, and of course everything is going towards main power anyway. But this does take care of the cockpit lighting setup for me. So I've managed to get everything in. I'm just going to tidy all this up, and this will be ready for an install. But what I'm super curious about, once I get these wires tidied, is this element here, because there is a window here, which is sort of a step down, as it were, to a lower grate. So that pilot's chair sits sort of very comfortably down like that. Now I've made these a brown color just to add a little bit of contrast to this, and the detail on this is quite fun. Let me pull this over to the close-up camera so that you can see what I'm talking about. It's a little blown out, but there's wonderful details around here. So I'm very happy with that. I think that's coming together quite nicely. But fit is an issue, and you do have to constantly be looking to make sure that you've got things exactly where they need to be. And some things are not that easy to test fit. They just are not. So you're hoping that you've got things right. But I think I do. I started to add some color here to the inside of the engine compartment. I've just started to add color. I'm going to add a lot more. I'll probably dust that with some insignia white, as I like to do, just to pull that out. Most of that will be in darkness, but it's fun to sort of get a little bit of color on it and see where we are. Well, we've accomplished an awful lot this week, and I'm really proud of this build-up. It's got a tremendous amount of opportunity for detail and gack, and it's going to be really vibrant. I've made a decision that I'm going to go with an oxide red for the ship. There's going to be silver accents, and it just seems to make more sense for this. I don't know why, but from a palette perspective, Randy picked a certain color. I've thought about silvers. We could certainly go that route, but I may still look at that. But I'm going to test an oxide red and some metallics for sure. But the problem with the metallics is you'll lose all the detail in this wonderful engine compartment, because it'll all just sort of get lost, which is why the red oxide really will make this engine pop. And then if you do little yellows and reds or whites, there's a reason why I think Randy went with that palette, and I'm most likely going to stick with it. I think most of the fit issues have been taken care of. This will sort of all have to come together. I've just sort of loosely tacked in my engines in the back here, just so that I could see just where they go, and they fit quite nicely into these slots. There is an opportunity here for some definitely for some more detail things. I know Randy put a yellow stripe along here just to kind of make that pop and sell it, which I sort of do like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. We'll take a look at that. We've also got we're going to have a lot of fun with these inserts, and some of the other details we'll pick out as we go. It's going to sit on a little acrylic base with a slight upwards glance from the front. I definitely have some bondoing to do, and you know, it's one of those things where when you're dealing with kits like this, you are always going to be sanding and modifying and trying to put things together. That's the nature of the beast. And when these first came on the market and there was no 3D printing per se, you know, it really made all the sense in the world, because you would never find a kit in this scale of this immensity on the market, certainly not in a sprue version. So I'm really pleased to be able to be dedicating a build to the great Randy Cooper. Very talented artist. You can check him out. I'll leave information on how you can find Randy in the description below. But we're going to leave it there for this update. We should be finished with this in the next update. We've got quite a bit of painting and detail work to do, but I think another week and a half on this, and we should be able to get through it quite nicely. Hey, if you want to get a hold of me, I am sprueverse@gmail.com, and as you know, I post most days in the weeds pictures of what's going on the bench on my Instagram account. That's at Sprueverse. You know, you could buy me a cup of coffee for my charity builds. That link is on my channel page, as well as a link to the Great World of Wayne's merch page, where you can pick up all of my merchandise. 100% of those proceeds go to charity, so you'll be glad you picked up a shirt. You really will. Hey, and as always, I wish all of you, please be safe and be well. Build something, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Be well.